I always say what's treasured is measured. If something's important to us, we want to know as much about it as we can learn. We want to know how much of it there is out there and how it's changing over time. So if someone says that the Dow is going up or down, or gross domestic product is rising or falling, we understand that these are broad measures of stock market performance or economic strength. It's a lot of data compressed into one number. It's calculated the same way every day for the Dow, every quarter or annually for the GDP. Indicators make it easy to compare performance between time periods. And they also provide us with a common currency of language, a way for more people to talk about, in this case, the health and vitality of the arts, using similar information, similar terms. For example, few of us are Wall Street, brokers or traders, but most of us get what it means, when we see that the market's going up or down. Several years ago, we asked ourselves, well, what is the arts equivalent to that? And there was no answer. Lots of great research studies, lots of great industry data, but not the rigorous cross-sector analysis done every year to track the arts. And that's what we set out to do when creating an arts indicator system, one that measures, as Bob said, the health and vitality of the arts in the United States. Now, when we set out on this, we thought this would be a 2-year expedition, and maybe we'd had a goal of finding 30 national level indicators. Well, 4.5 years later, sorry, boss, it took a little longer than expected. I am pleased to announce a major milestone for the arts, and that's the National Arts Index. It's an annual measure composed of 76 national level indicators that, again, taken together, offer us a comprehensive picture of the arts in America. Our initial presentation today in this report spans an 11-year period from 1998 to 2008. And obviously, if you want to know how things are changing, you want to come out with as many years of data as possible. And so this makes the index one of the largest data collection efforts ever assembled. And we've gathered data from government sources, private sector sources covering multiple industries, including many of you in the audience, the Urban Institute, National Endowment for the Arts, other federal agencies, National Arts Service organizations. Thank you all. You've been hugely helpful. And again, Bob talked about how the study breaks new ground. In the past, we've seen a lot of focused research on one aspect or one subsector or one question, but we've widened the lens to look at all the different arts sectors, nonprofit, for-profit, individual artists, as well as amateur levels of activity, which taken together give us a more complete picture of the arts in this country. And as Bob said also, we contextualize the data against a backdrop of population, changes in the economy, things that are changing for every industry. This helps us separate how the arts are changing versus just changes that affect everyone. So for example, say a particular art form is attendance is going up 0.5% a year. You might think that's great news, and it is good news, it's growing. But the fact is, the US population is growing 1% a year. So in effect, that art form is losing market share of the public, and that's what we track. This is what a picture of the Arts and Culture Balance Scorecard looks like. It's a systems approach to understanding the ecology of the arts industries. And all of the 76 indicators, and I'm not going to mention each of them, you'll be glad to know, but they're all listed right here in the table of contents of your report, and how they're grouped within each of these different pieces of the model. And you can see we've got financial flows. So that's philanthropy, that's artist income, business revenue, payment for artist services. We have capacity. That's how many, the change in the number of artists, number of arts organizations, number of nonprofit arts organizations. Arts participation. It's when we attend. It's how we create personally. Arts education measures. And finally, competitiveness, which illustrates the position of the arts compared to other sectors, market share. How are the arts competing for philanthropy? How are the arts competing for discretionary spending? So we use each indicator only once, and again, what this does is it enables us to unpack the national trend and better understand the separate components that comprise the arts ecology. And it really demonstrates this as a whole interdependent system. You really can't imagine the arts industries without the financial flows or without audiences or without artists or arts organizations. And so it's a way to systematize it. Okay, 76 national level indicators. We were very deliberate about what we included in our index, and each indicator had to meet a full list of specific criteria. Had to have a meaningful arts and culture measurement. It had to be national. It had to be produced annually by a reputable organization every year, and had to be available for at least 5 years beginning in 2003. Statistically valid, likely to be available in future years, affordable. Lots of data out there that you can buy, but within project budget constraints. So what's excluded is just as interesting as what's included. Our own economic impact study, not included in this. Why? It's done every 5 years. The survey of public participation in the arts that the NEA does, gold standard in participation research, but it's only done every 5 years. And then one last piece about the data. We use a base year of 2003, and using some advanced math described fully in your report, we convert every indicator to a 2003. It's our base year, 2003. Every indicator becomes a base of 1.0. And that enables us to track and compare and combine indicators, whether they're dollars, percentages, whether we're talking hundreds or billions. And you'll see what that looks like. So what did we find out? This is what you came to know. Well, here is what the National Arts Index looks like over the 11-year period. You could see we set 2003 as our benchmark year of the National Arts Index. It equals 100. And every number change here is a percent difference from 2003. So you could actually see from 2003 to 2004, the arts improved by 0.5%. So the 2008 score, the National Arts Index fell 4.2% to 98.4. And that reflects losses in charitable giving, declining attendance at larger cultural institutions, all that even as the number of arts organizations in this country grew. And a score of 105.5 would return the index to its highest point measured back here in 1999. Now, while the arts have become increasingly creative, the number of working artists and arts organizations is growing, audience demand has failed to keep pace, and that's caused the index to drop here in 2008 to the lowest point in the 11 years we've tracked. Now, every year is a mix of good news and tough news. Indicators are rising, indicators are falling. In 2007, over half of the indicators increased. 2008, just about a third of them increased. And another interesting finding, I think, which will be probably is intuitive, that the Arts Index largely follows the nation's business cycle. And not surprising, 100,000 nonprofit arts organizations, 600,000 arts businesses, 2.25 million artists in the workforce, billions in consumer spending. The arts are big business, and it's subject to the booms and the busts that the whole economy experiences. Based on past patterns, we expect that the arts will begin to see a rebound in 2011. So, you can look ahead as a forecast and see how what the future holds. Now, the overall index is only one of the big stories in this report. We can also study and look at many subsectors of it. So, taking a look here, capacity indicators. This component, I think, is one of the most striking findings of the National Arts Index. The rapid increase in the number of arts organizations, arts businesses, artists, And you can see a steady growth there over the 10-year span, every single year. So that's a large growth in capacity. Now, drilling down a little bit to the nonprofit organizations using Urban Institute data, one major component of capacity has been the remarkable and consistent growth of nonprofit arts organizations. And you can see here over the 10, 11 years, from about 68,000 to about 104,000. Between 2003 and 2008, a new nonprofit arts organization was created in this country every 3 hours. So lots of growth there. Yet, year after year, on any given year, 1 in 3 struggling to make a break-even budget. So if you're a funder, you feel like there's a lot of increased demand, your perception is in fact reality. Paralleling this growth, we see the subsidy model is struggling. And here is looking at corporate funding and foundation funding to nonprofit arts organizations. And this is a market share look. And so in 1998, 14.8%, so almost 15 cents of every charitable dollar went to an arts organization. By 2007, that dropped to 10.6%. And you can see similar drops on the corporate side, from about 10% to 4.5%. So challenges there in trying to support these organizations. We're also seeing major shifts in how Americans are consuming the arts. 22 indicators comprise our participation measure, and taken together, they've actually increased slowly, but steadily. Not a lot of change there. However, the 2007 index score is the highest of the 10 years there. But very interesting shifts happening and taking place within participation. Total attendance numbers, if you just count up attendees at museums, relatively flat. But if you look at the portion of the U.S. population, something else starts to come into play here. We use market data from Scarborough Research. It's one of those market research companies. It's who Procter & Gamble goes to figure out what kind of toothpaste to use every morning. 200,000 surveys they do every single year. So a huge data set. And what we find is that there's been a steady decline in the percentage of the population attending museums and performing arts events. Decreases performing arts events of 17%, museums about 13%. So this is percentage of the U.S. population attending. So again, seeing changes there to our more venerable institutions. This personal creation, however, is up. This is a very interesting finding, and I think something a lot of people have observed but haven't had the number for it. And it shows personal creation is slightly ahead of the growth rate of the U.S. population. And so more and more people are taking a ceramics class, playing music, creating personally. Additionally, a greater percentage of personal consumption was spent on arts and culture. Slight increases there as well. What else have we been able to look at? Well, the impact of technology. This is a really striking one. This is the number of music and CD stores, which in the 5 years there decreased fully 50% in number. Of course, what's everybody doing? Skyrocketing, right? Online downloads. They've grown fourfold in the last 3 years, just right from here. So that's another way that we see shifts. Arts Memphis is come up with an iTouch app. So you can touch it, and a number of other communities have as well. People are making last-minute decisions about how to go see an arts. Click your little button, there it is. So technology is also helping with the delivery systems. How else is participation changing? Here's one that I think many of us have sensed but haven't had the numbers for yet. Arts participation and vitality is being heavily driven by smaller, community-based, culturally and ethnically specific arts organizations. And the number of these organizations has grown faster than they're all nonprofit arts organizations, and in fact, even faster than the minority population in this country. So lots of growth there, and not only that, they're doing better on that financial bottom line that nonprofit arts organizations are struggling against generally. So that's a very interesting trend. And there were some surprises as well that we caught. You know, arts education is a huge issue. And I think most of us are familiar with the data that shows nationally in K through 12, there's been a decrease over the years in the amount of arts education, 25 to 33%, depending on the studies that you look at. Well, we dug much deeper into the College Board data, and what we found is that the percentage of college-bound high school seniors taking 4 years of arts or music is actually on the increase. It's growing. More arts education demand. Also, there's been an increase in the number of arts degrees conferred every year, from about 70,000 to about 125,000 college arts degrees conferred every year. So this is interesting. Is there an equity issue here? You know, who's being left out? So I think this is another example of, you know, how the index starts to ask the questions. New work. I think creativity and innovation is up. This is a source of pride and accomplishment for the arts. In 2007, 10 world premieres performed by American operas, 124 premieres by American orchestras, 337 world premieres by American theaters. So new art continues to be created. Creativity, innovation. That's a great news story. But the bottom line, you know, to look at this is, if you look at the competitiveness measure, the competitiveness of the arts is slipping. And so the arts, in many ways, are just not stacking up as well as they have in past years when against audience time, donor and funder commitment. Of the 25 indicators that we look at for the competitiveness measure, 10 declined right here, and 17 of the 25 have declined since their earliest measures. So I think that's a real issue that bears watching. So the questions, you know, that's what the index does. It not only measures past performance, but helps us see trends and ask questions to help us plan and perform better in the future. How do we build greater demand for the arts? Can the capacity issue be addressed by broadening the business structure and new business models? Can there be more arts incubators, more shared services, more community collaborations and partnerships? Are public and private sector funders ready to embrace more fitting funding models for a new competitive world? Does everybody have to be a 501c3? That's a question to ask. So for our part, we'll continue all of our national convenings this year, talking about these data and the questions that arise. We will publish updates of the National Arts Index every year. We'll continue this into the future. Every October, National Arts and Humanities Month, expect a new National Arts Index report. And starting this year, we'll begin development in partnership with 100 of our local arts agencies on a local Arts Vitality Index to get those local measures. These are just a few of the findings. I invite you to share the report with your colleagues, your members, your community. It's online. And use these questions to begin a dialogue, because that is what will help shape a positive future for the arts in America. The National Arts Index is the beginning of the conversation, not the end.